She had gone from spending 150% of her income probably living at her parents' house to moving in with me. And so
don't look at me like that.
it was 9 months later from the time that we started to when our mortgage was 100% paid off.
9
Can
months.
you believe that?
So instead of 10 years,
This is not something you can make up.
Get
out. You know what?
That's right.
I
rather
am so much more content having money to give than I am with having a new couch.
Come on,
every year.
me too.
Yes.
Yes. Welcome back to Generations, and I am so excited about talking about finances.
Yes,
Ashley,
our
this is
topic
such
today.
an important part of everybody's life. And you can have a lot of money come to you, but if you don't know how to manage it, you can end up with nothing. So it makes a difference how you manage your money, and I'm excited about educating people about this topic.
Yeah, I think money is obviously a really important topic. It's something that a lot of people get uncomfortable with. It makes people feel insecure. People have a lot of fear around money. And I mean, it's interesting because I know growing up, I don't think money was talked about a lot. For me, like even in our house, like we always talked about giving, like you tithe and you give an offering, but that was it. And even in school, like you're not learning about investing, you're not learning about debt and how to budget. Like I just think, I do think now I have heard at least about different schools that are making it a part of the curriculum. And I just think that's so important because money is way too important for so many people to be in the dark about it. And then they wind up getting in the hole, and it becomes such an area of tension and pressure. And I just think that we need to be talking about money as much as possible, especially in the context of the word.
Yeah, because the word talks about money.
It talks about it a lot. It talks about it a lot.
Yes, a lot. And so it's important. And like you said, we didn't really talk about finances a whole lot. My parents didn't really talk about finances a whole lot. And so you only know what you know.
Yeah, and you kind of learn through experience, a lot of the times negative experiences. Like, and man, I wish somebody had told me not to do this.
Right, because knowledge is power.
Well, you said growing up, it wasn't talked about a lot. What would you like to say as far as like your journey with finances? And like, obviously you've had a successful career. What are some things that maybe you've taken from day one, and what are some things that you've learned recently in your life? I know we're still learning, but
well, one of the things, you know, when I talk about my mom and dad, they didn't talk about finances a lot, like, you know, as far as what to invest in, what not to invest in. But the thing they did teach me was that it was more blessed to give than to receive, and the importance of paying tithes and putting God first. And that has, since a teenager, I've been paying tithes. That has made a difference because you're giving it, but also God is doing something in your heart. He's teaching you about obedience and also generosity. And so I've seen him move in my life in ways that only he could move. I think we've talked about it before, about it being a supernatural component to being generous. And so that is one thing I have applied to my life over before my career, during the career, and even now. You know, the blessing of being generous and giving, and I like to play the game of how much more can I give?
And even knowing that there's a difference between, like, I think it was probably Robert Morris's book, The Blessed Life, that put things into perspective of like the tithe is not yours. That's God. So the 90% is actually what you can be generous with. I can't be generous with something that doesn't belong to me.
Good point. Give God his first.
The tithing is like, yes, that's the principle of the first tenth that goes to the Lord. So that's something I've recently been learning. And then what I do with the rest, and okay, Lord, how do I manage the 90?
There you go.
Again, manage, because none of it's mine. It's all God's. So I'm trying to, at least where I'm at right now in my life, and knowing, okay, I'm in my late 30s. You know, I want to be able to have something to show for when I'm in my late 40s.
Right.
So Lord, help me to manage the 90 and making sure I'm budgeting properly, but also how to make generosity a priority and what does that look like.
Right.
And you and Dad have definitely modeled that. I see you guys get excited. You guys are always blessing people, looking for more opportunities to give. So I definitely want to, adopt that same mindset and the same, way of living of like generosity is key because it is supernatural. And I know that that's opened so many doors that you probably don't even realize in your life, not just financially and materially, but in all other areas of life. So yeah, I'm definitely like thinking more about investing, things that they say you should start doing in your 20s. But a lot of people don't think about it in their 20s. When you're in your 20s, you're just wanting to have fun and spend your money. But yeah, exactly. Just wherever you're at, start today.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I'm really trying to be more intentional about in my 30s. So.
Which is good. And I think those 2 points are strong enough to change anybody's life. Giving God his first off the top, and then inviting him in, asking for his wisdom on how to spend the 90.
You're right.
And you're going to see God do things that you can't even imagine because he's waiting to do the exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or think, not just in our lives, but in your life. Right. So it's going to be great.
Yes. And so we've got our guests today. They're going to be talking all about money and finances, and they have some amazing testimonies of how God has just blown their minds in just being obedient and being invited into what God is doing.
Yeah.
So
we have Bob and Linda Lotich that's coming, and seedtime.com is their online ministry, and we're just excited about God changing your life and blessing you. He's going to elevate you higher than you've ever been. So stay tuned. Hey everybody, CeCe and Ashley here, and we want to invite you to Generations Live 2025. It is going to be incredible. We'll have Cheryl Brady, Jackie Hill Perry, Priscilla Shires coming. Yay. Oh my goodness, and so many others. We have others we'll continue to add, but it's going to be amazing. Ashley will be teaching again.
Yes, I'll be back.
What a powerful message you shared. At 2024. So you don't want to miss it. If you haven't registered, go and register now because guess what? People are coming.
Yes, and it's on May the 9th and the 10th, 2025 here in Nashville, Tennessee. So make sure you go online at generationsliveconference.com.
See you there. Welcome back to Generations, and I am so excited about our guests today. We have Bob and Linda Lotich with us, and we are talking about finances. How are you all? I'm so glad you're here.
We're thrilled to be here.
Excited.
I have been admiring you all for a while now. We've talked a little bit online, on Instagram, but to have them here today, your testimonies are incredible. Just tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then I want to hear a few God stories. We talked about it before we started taping today. So tell everybody about yourselves.
Start?
So, we live here in town, but, several years ago, I would say when we were in our early 20s, we kind of just were messes financially. Really very, just didn't know anything.
We're not those people who had it all figured out from the beginning.
No,
Right.
not at all.
We were a mess.
Great, good to know.
Yes. And, there are still tendencies that we can see from our past even now that it's just, God has just walked us through so much. But in those early days, we were separately. We met when we were around 20 years old and just didn't know what we didn't know. Didn't even know the questions to ask.
Because we didn't learn it in school.
Right.
Like most of us, right?
Unfortunately, very unfortunate.
There's little information, or not there's little information, there's little education, I think.
Yeah.
So we just started learning what we could and started putting a few things into practice. Okay. And when we got married, we were like, let's really try and do something. But as we invited God into what we were doing, we started seeing him do some really amazing things. Some of the stories that you've heard, which we just love talking about them because they were not us.
And I love
We were not smart enough.
Yeah.
We tried, we did our best, but God really just showed up big time.
Yeah, and one of the big turning points for us, in this journey, going from being a mess and like doing things in our own strength. And it's like we started seeing some forward progress and we started paying off some debts and things like that, which that's great.
Yeah.
You know, and we were even following biblical principles kind of doing that. But the key thing that we really notice is when we do our part and then we bring God into this equation and actually invite him into our finances, like that's when things just go bonkers. And that's what we experienced. So like if I take it back maybe 12, 13 years ago at this point, I was on a prayer walk praying and asking God, will you come invade our finances? We need your help. We had honestly made some progress, but we wanted to pay off our house. We had this bold, audacious prayer. Like, God, can you help us pay off our house? Feels crazy, but like, why not? Let's ask him if he can help us do this. And I'm walking through this field to the middle of the day, like in a March, you know, kind of chilly day, but no one's around. I'm out in the middle of this field praying. And I remember as I'm asking him this, one of the clearest impressions that I've ever gotten from the Lord, where I felt he spoke to my heart. He said, if you really want to see me move on your finances, I want you to begin giving your age as a percentage of your income.
Wow.
Your age.
My age.
How old were you at the time?
I was 31 years old. And so I stopped in the middle of this field.
Wow.
I'm like,
God, are
looking
you
up.
sure?
Okay, so I got to stop you right
Yeah.
there. Did you feel God was saying this to you when he came? Were you
know,
willing,
how did that
or was
work?
it-
It's
yeah.
funny. I think because our personalities are so different, Bob is the more analytical one, and I'm a little bit more like, sure, let's go for it.
Okay.
You know? So I had a little bit of that, but also up to that point, God had like built up our trust in him.
Got it.
So when he asked us to do this, or invited us, I should say, it kind of felt like, there's something interesting here. Like,
Yeah.
what would happen if we actually said yes to this?
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
it felt like
so
an
go ahead,
invitation.
Bob.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the thing.
Keep
Like it
going.
wasn't this heavy-handed, you better do this or I'm gonna get you.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like that. It was
Right.
like
Yeah.
this
An
invitation, and it
Oh.
reminded me of Jesus asking Peter, hey,
Yeah.
do you want to be the one
put
who
it
can
out.
step out of the boat and walk on this water and say that you did it? Like I can just
Yeah.
see Jesus with like a glint in his eye. He's like, come on, I got you. You know, like that's what this thing felt like. And so it was so different than some of my experiences I had had around giving, where it just felt like guilt and shame
Yeah.
and heavy-handedness and you got to do this. And like this was so different. It was just this gentle invitation. And so anyway, so I start, as I'm walking in this field, I'm doing mental math and my numbers. I got numbers flying everywhere. Like,
Of course.
I don't think we can do
How
this.
is
We
this gonna work?
We can't buy groceries.
Yeah.
What were you giving before that?
Probably 11%.
Maybe
So
about
this is
11%.
11%
You had
to
pushed over that
31%.
We
10%.
had,
Oh,
we
yeah.
had pushed over, and we
Yeah.
were like, we're
We're
doing
doing
great.
great. Yeah.
Good
Above and
job.
beyond the
Yeah.
time.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's what's so funny is as I'm wrestling in this in my head and I get to this moment where I'm like, God, wait a minute. I'm angry a little bit, like dealing with some feelings here because I'm like, I just came asking you to help me get our house paid off, and now you're saying, give all your money away.
Right, yeah.
Like you're
Seems
messing
very
up my plan here,
counterproductive
Lord.
here, yeah.
It didn't make any sense, and I had a little bit of this pharisaical thing of like, I thought I reached the finish line of Christian giving. Like we were tithers. It's like we reached the end. Like I don't. Why would I give any more?
The end.
You know what I
Finish
mean?
line of Christian giving.
And
That's
so
awesome.
in this moment, as I'm having all these wrestles and whatever, all these thoughts, I go back and talk to her. I'm like, dude, am I crazy? Like, what's going on here?
She's ready for it.
And
ready.
yeah, and she was ready. But the thing she said that like just locked it in for me, she's, you know, if God is asking us to do this, he wouldn't ask us unless there was something really big on the other side.
Exactly,
My
exactly.
God.
All right.
I feel the
So
spirit
how
on that.
quickly did you implement this? Like, did it take you a few months? Were you like, let's figure this out first, or were you guys just like, okay,
We
let's do
jumped.
it, we're all in?
We
Yeah,
jumped.
we were all in.
That next month,
Yes.
we went from 11% to 31%. You know, so we pulled back because we were paying extra towards our mortgage.
Sure.
We're like, nope, we're going to give all that money away now. It's like, and it was really laying down on the altar my desire to have a paid off house.
Right.
It was like, God, I wanted that. I'm going to give that up.
So question, did the 31%, did you spread it out? Did you just give it to your church? Was it like he told you certain people to bless? Like who did you give that money
There's a
to?
whole lot there that we can go into, but
Okay.
short answer is it was going multiple places.
Okay.
You know, so we continued to give to our church, gave a little bit more there, but found other ministries we want to support and
Yeah.
all kinds of different stuff.
Okay.
Well, but one of
yeah.
the other things that we started was we made a giving account. So, which was just
That's good.
personal
This
for
is
us.
huge.
This
This is
was
This is huge. Yep.
someone's having a birthday, someone's having a baby, and we want to be able to celebrate,
Yeah.
throw a shower,
Everything
have a
comes
party.
out of that account.
Yes, and it really is a game changer
Yeah.
because it makes it so fun to just be like,
Yeah.
not just like I'm going to buy this person a standard birthday present. What's the appropriate amount? It's kind of like, God, what do you want to do here? Is there anything that I could do to like bless them extra? And it just makes it like
Fun.
just so
Exciting.
fun
Yeah.
and exciting. Yeah.
Single-handedly, that is the biggest thing that made giving not fun to make it fun for me personally.
Having that
Having
account.
the money sitting there already set aside,
Already set
to be
aside.
given away. It feels like you're giving away someone else's
Because
money.
you're taking this off your income and putting
Yep.
that in there.
It's in a
Like
separate
with your
bucket,
tithes, it's in
literally a
bucket.
separate account
Yeah.
Got it.
with
Yeah.
a different name on it. So there's no
Assigned
commingling.
for
It's
that.
just easy. That money is already designated
Set
to be
apart
given.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
Well,
game changer.
Now, and you know how many times you're like out and about, you're shopping, doing whatever, and you're like, oh man, you know who would love that?
Right.
Yeah.
Now it's easy to just go buy
You
it,
could
just
Yeah.
get it
send
and give it
there.
to that person, and then this person gets an unexpected blessing that they didn't even know was coming, and it's
That
just
is
so
awesome.
sweet.
it's so fun.
So like the Lord, he's
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
wonderful gift giver. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So what was kind
So,
of the
okay.
first, once you started that, what would you say was the first like miraculous, like we saw God move when we jumped and went straight from 11 to 31?
Well, I don't think the first month or two we noticed anything. And it's
Okay.
just like,
Yeah.
we're just doing what he asked us
Well,
to do.
the first miracle,
You know?
honestly, is that he sustained us.
Yeah, I was going to
about to
say,
say,
you were
like,
able to
we're
still
still
pay
able to
your
pay our
bills.
bills.
I was just
Yeah.
about
We were
to
paying
ask.
our bills,
Okay.
and that is
That
the
is a
first,
miracle.
That is the first miracle.
Yeah, I was like, were you noticing, like, I guess, because especially if you're analytical and you're doing the math, I'm sure you had it all written out. I know you said you
Yeah.
were like paying extra towards your mortgage, but were you ever in a point of like, where is this money going to come from? Like, how are we going to cover all this if
So
31?
you're saying, was it always easy?
Yeah, I mean, did you
Yeah.
have a moment of like, oh gosh, how are we going to pay this bill? Or, I mean, obviously
All right,
everything got
so
paid.
let's get into the numbers.
Okay.
Okay, so prior to this, when I started praying this prayer, it was going to be about 3 to 4 years to pay off our mortgage if we took all the extra money that we had. We were doing well financially at that point. Like our
Okay.
business was doing well. Like we were in a good spot, and we were putting thousands of dollars extra towards our mortgage, which is just amazing.
Great, yeah.
So I'm doing the math. It's going to be about 3 or 4 years to pay it off.
Okay.
Okay. Once I came up with this new plan that God invited us on, it's like I did the math again. Now it's
Yeah.
going to be over 10 years to pay off our
Okay.
mortgage. So
Which
we
is
just
still good.
Still great.
Still
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Let's be
Right.
honest.
Most people,
Awesome.
right?
we just
Yeah.
went way
Still
backwards.
early, right.
And so where this whole thing gets so crazy and where it's only God is it was 9 months later from the time that we started to when our mortgage was 100% paid off.
9
Can you
months.
believe that?
So
Wait,
instead
wait,
of
wait,
10
wait.
years,
This is
Your-
not something you
wait,
can make
wait.
up.
Get
No.
out.
I know.
So 10 years.
9 months.
On paper.
Not even
10
a
years
year.
on
God
paper.
did it.
And we did it in less than 10 months.
What? Okay, how?
That is the thing. That's the thing that's so tricky. But
How?
like, because again, it's all how God does this. But what we saw,
Yes.
what we began seeing as our business began taking off, we got a huge tax refund that came in. We had money coming from different places we weren't expecting. It was just one thing after
Wow.
another, after
My
another, after another,
God.
where it was God just showing Himself strong,
watch
proving
what I
Himself
can
faithful.
do. Oh my God.
You know,
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing is that we have to add in here is that we were working towards this goal, so that was where we put any extra income.
Got it.
We didn't go to Europe.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We didn't
Okay,
go on a
you
fancy
disciplined. Come
vacation.
on.
We
You
were
were like, we're
disciplined
paying
in
off
that
our
area.
debt.
Where it was like, we want to pay this off, so that's where all this is going to go.
Uh-huh.
So I think,
that's a
sometimes
very
people
important
can-
everything
point.
was
Right.
pre-allocated towards that goal.
Got it.
That was our focus at that point.
And you both were willing to make that
Yeah.
sacrifice and
Oh, yeah.
discipline.
It was
Like you said, because a lot of
redirected.
times people think you can still do everything you want to do
No.
and still accomplish
Right.
it, but God wants you to be disciplined.
But that said, it's important to mention, like, we still enjoyed our life.
Yeah.
We still went out to dinner, but
Yeah.
we weren't taking
Yeah.
5 Europe trips
Yeah.
that year, or whatever the
Not
thing might
yet.
be.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
still
we,
have to
we
do
still said
decent.
no to ourselves.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, no,
Amazing.
absolutely. It was so amazing watching that. But like coming back to the other part that was so exciting is, yes, God gave us this amazing blessing that we prayed for after we laid our
laid
idol
it.
down on the altar. Because honestly, the paid off house had become an idol in my life, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest. So that was amazing. But the better part was that as we've continued this, we now have this giving fund set aside that we have so much money in there that we're every month we're just praying, God, where do you want us to give?
to
What do you want us to
put
do? Completely changed our perspective on giving and the way we live our lives. So
So you
the blessings
continued
are
every
amazing.
year. You started at 31.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're a little bit older now.
By God's grace, we
I was
choose to
gonna say,
continue.
yeah. So this has
Little
been
bit
a
over.
continuous
They
thing
take
that he's
every
invited
year.
you to. It wasn't just
Yes.
that year.
Yes.
He was like, I'm inviting you to live like this. Give
Oh
your
my
age.
Yes.
So each year you went up 1%.
So we're 43
Yes.
now. By His
Wow.
grace, He's gotten us
By
to
His
age
grace.
43. We will see if we make it through this year. That's up to Him.
It's
Like,
up to him.
at
Yeah,
the end of
it's
the
up to
day,
him.
like we're not
can do
attached
it.
to this age as a percentage
You got
thing,
it.
but like
You got it.
I would love if every year of my life we were able to do that
Give
up
more.
until we're 90
Give
or whatever.
more.
Yeah, that's
Like,
so
but we'll see what He
great.
does. It's up to
Yeah.
Him.
Yeah.
You might be able to give a whole lot more
Wow.
than that because he's just that big. Okay, great God story. Okay, but I want to hear, you said by that time you guys were in a pretty good place.
Yep.
Let's go back to when you weren't in a good
Yep.
place and tell me how you got there.
How far back can one go, CeCe?
However you want to go, because
Okay.
people are watching
That are
and they're in
struggling.
different places.
Yeah.
That
And
are
some of them
not
are
in a
struggling.
good
Somebody
place
feel like
financially.
this story is impossible for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Sure.
they think you were born with
Yeah,
a silver
yeah,
spoon in your
I know.
mouth, and you told me that your background was in finances
Yeah.
too, but still you said you guys were in a mess.
Yeah.
So let's
Well, yeah,
go back.
I mean, if I go back to the very beginning, this is the first story we talk about in the book, but basically I'm age 20, taking a little bit of sabbatical time with the Lord down in Florida, and I find myself, it's the day before my 21st birthday, and I'm driving my car down this Florida road, beautiful, sun's out, 70 degrees, you know, I'm in a beach town. It's like Instagrammer's dream before Instagram is around,
Right,
you know?
before
Instagram.
Instagram.
Yeah, so it was just a beautiful day, and as I'm driving, all of a sudden, I'm at this point, and my car breaks down in the middle of the road, in which, that's a bad day, you know, not a good thing to happen, but like, as I'm sitting in that car, and really out of the car, because I was doing the thing where you got to hold the steering wheel and push the door and drive it over, because there's so much traffic,
Yeah.
and super awkward, but as I'm sitting there, I get into the car, and I start thinking about what's going to unfold the rest of that day, and I'm like, this is not good, it's not good, Bob, it's not good, like, we're in trouble here, and so I'm there grabbing the steering wheel, realizing, okay, my friends are flying in tomorrow to pick me up from the airport. And the reason I'd been driving is I just got my paycheck for that week, and I had to get it to the bank to deposit it so I could pay my rent that was due that day. And I'm like thinking through all this, but wait a minute, the landlord's gonna charge me a $50 late fee if I don't pay that today, and I don't have the extra $50 because my paycheck only covers the rent payment.
Right.
Where am I gonna come up with that? And so I'm thinking through all this and like, wait, how am I going to get this car towed, fixed? I have $7 in my checking account, only $233 available credit on my credit card.
Wow.
Like, how is all this going to work out, God? Like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
Wow.
And so I'm sitting there, like, grabbing the steering wheel. And in that moment, I started kind of freaking out a little bit. And what's so funny is 5 minutes earlier, I said, everything's
Great.
perfect.
What a great day.
Right.
But it's like
Life is good.
something as simple as an alternator going bad in your
Bad.
car just like derailed everything. Because that was my financial life. It was this house of cards. It was just like all stacked up, and one little gust of wind, and the whole
One
thing
thing
comes
can
crumbling
blow it
down.
Wow.
And there's so many people that live like
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
Live
It's
like
so
that.
normal. And I think that was the thing that God broke me out of, that like showed me that that's not how it has to be. Like there is another way. And I believe that that's what God has for all of us.
Yeah.
That He has a level of freedom in this area. I don't believe Jesus came to set us free in so many areas for us to be bound
In our
in debt, in financial, in all of our financial stuff. So anyway, you want me to continue with the
Yes,
story?
yes.
All right.
Please
Keep
do.
going.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and grabbing the steering wheel, hot tears coming down my eyes as I'm like, I'm clueless. I don't know what to do, you know? And I had always wanted to be an accountant. I had worked at a bank for a little bit, and so all my friends thought, this dude knows so much about money. It's like I was clueless. I just happened to work at a bank, you know? And I remember in that moment, I'm like, God, I don't know how I got here. I don't know how to get out of here. But if you have a better way, if you have a path, like I am open, I'm willing to listen. I'm ready to humble myself, you know, and admit that I don't know everything I don't know. And that was the turning point for me where God's like, okay, you're finally ready to listen. I'm ready to share.
Wow.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
inviting the Lord in is obviously the spiritual component. And then do you feel like He gave you very specific practical steps, or did He
Yeah.
lead you to scripture? Did He lead you to a mentor? Like, what did that look like in figuring out, okay, these are the steps, 1, 2, 3, this is how we're going to get from where we are to where we want
And
to
I think
be.
you're asking, like, how did he combine the spiritual and the practical?
And the practical,
Yeah.
right, because
Together
I know
in
that there's
managing.
both.
Yeah.
So, what did that
Yeah,
look
so
like?
for me, I think, and this was about, a year or two before I met you, and we got together?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me at that point, it was start learning, okay? And it was a twofold thing.
Educate yourself.
Start reading the book of Proverbs. The Bible
Okay.
talks a
Yeah.
whole lot about money. Let's get the biblical side, but then also
Yeah.
start learning some of the practical stuff. So I started watching every video I could get my hands on, every book I could read, every money magazine. Like I just nerded out and started going down that path. And so for us, what came out of that was, all right, you have a ton of debt. The debt has, it's dominated your life. You are sitting here paying all this interest, whereas, if we go back to what God said to the Israelites, He wanted them to be the ones who were earning interest and not paying interest.
yeah.
I want you to lend to many
That's right,
nations and
and
not
not
borrow. And so that was like the first thing for me. It's like, all right, let's figure out how to get this debt paid off. Let's focus there and eliminate this thing, because as soon as we do, we're going to have hundreds of dollars, maybe even thousands of dollars each month of extra money that we're not paying to Chase and Visa and all these other debts. And so that was a big motivator for us. It's like, how do we start there? And that was about the time that we started getting together, right?
Yeah, my story is very different. The
Okay.
way I came to all this was that I remember praying before I got married, God, help me marry someone who's good at math. I didn't even know what to pray. I just was like, this is a real deficit in my life. So I just prayed this simple prayer, help me, God, I gotta marry someone who's good at math. And Bob is really good at math, but what I was saying was, I'm in trouble and I don't know what to do about it. And so it took me a little bit longer because my natural inclination is not to nerd out on finances. I still don't nerd out on finances.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not thinking about
But
that.
I was, when we got married and I realized that he was trying to learn as much as he could, I leaned into that.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to fight this.
Right,
Because I
right.
want this to change in my life as well. And so if he's coming up with a plan,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna follow.
Yeah.
I'm
go
gonna
with
follow
it,
it,
yeah.
and I'm not going to just go my own direction
That's
and be
good.
like whatever.
That's wisdom. That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that was my,
So
and
you
still
guys
is.
are-
I do that a
Yeah.
lot, where I'm like, what do you think we should do?
You lean in,
Smart.
but that's unity. So
Yeah.
God blesses
Absolutely.
agreement and unity.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So you guys got together, and what did you do?
Yeah. Well, one of the first things that we always take our students through, like an exercise that I think is just essential, is that you have to start paying attention to where your money is going. We live in a world now with Venmo and PayPal and Cash App and subscriptions pulling out this and that.
So
Like
many-
it's so easy
so
to have
easy.
no idea what's going on with your money.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It's just so easy right now. It's
Right.
very different. Probably, well, I shouldn't say it. In my parents' day,
In my day.
back in the old days,
I can take it. I'm a
Where do you
grandmother.
Even when we were kids, I feel like it
Yeah.
was different.
Yeah.
When we
Totally
first
different.
started,
Totally
you know,
different.
in the
yeah.
last
Drastic.
15
yeah, it's just
years.
so different. And
Right.
so many people just don't know where the money's going. So the first step is paying attention, actually understanding to do this. And so there's a handful of free apps that we use and we talk our students through. I'm happy to talk through some of them now that you can just simply go on there, connect your credit cards or your debit cards, and quickly, within like 5-10 minutes, see exactly how much you spent last month on groceries,
Yeah.
how much you spent on Amazon.
Okay, so let's go back. So give me 3 steps, maybe 3 steps of getting out of debt. So would that be one? To see where
that's the-
everything is
absolutely
going
the
first?
first step.
Absolutely.
We
Okay.
have to know what's going on. And the
Okay.
reason we need that information is because, and, Lynn has a great example of what this looked like in our marriage, but the reason is because you need that information so you can make a decision on what's important to you. Like, we're not the people who are going to yell at you for spending all your money on whatever the thing is that is really important to you. But I do want you to spend it intentionally on what is important to you and not waste it on all those other
Waste it,
things you
yeah.
don't care about,
Yeah,
which is
you
what
don't even
so many of us are
realize,
doing.
yeah, so
that
much
we don't even
you
know we're
spend,
doing.
You don't even know where it's
And
going.
that's why this simple exercise of understanding, being able to get a big picture and see exactly where our money is going is so critically important to start.
Okay.
So you have that information so you can make the decision of what's important to you. Do you want to tell them the Starbucks thing?
Sure. You guys want to hear it?
Yes, we
So,
wanna hear it.
yeah, this was the thing. I mean, I was highly addicted to Starbucks. I love it. There's the experience,
Yeah.
the green straw, the whole thing.
Expensive
for sure,
experience.
yeah.
It But I was going out every day to get myself a coffee because I enjoyed it. I didn't have anything at home to make my own. I was like, there's no way I can make this,
Right.
So I would go out and I would get my coffee every day. Well, one day Bob walks up to me and he does this. Do you know that it costs $5 a day to buy Starbucks? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
They tell me every day.
Yeah.
Then he starts adding the math up for me.
Every day.
And what's the math?
Well, you were spending.
I gotta lean on my math guy.
She was spending over $200 a month on
200,
Starbucks.
yeah.
So that's what I
Sure.
came and told her.
So he just says, "Oh, do you know that adds up to $200 a month?" And then he left.
He just left you alone. He just
gave
left
me
that
the
girl to
Let you know
information
that
and walked
and let
away.
you sit with that. Yeah.
You can't unhear it then.
Yeah.
No.
And then I just sat there and I was like, well, and at this point in our marriage, we had things organized enough where this was not a fight in our
Yeah.
marriage.
Got it.
Like he was like, that's fine if you want to spend money on
But
that.
you just need to know
but
how
I just
much
want
it
you
is
to
a
know
month.
how much it is.
What you could be
And I
doing
just
with
sat
that.
there and I thought, is that what I want to be spending my money on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
And
that's
I-
a good
it
payment every
wasn't.
month.
But it was like so powerful, but that just by him saying, do you know that it's this much a month? Then I walked away and I was like, all right, can you help me figure out how to
Yeah.
buy an espresso machine? I'm going to figure out how to make things myself. And I ended up enjoying it more, making it at home,
At
Nice.
home.
Yeah.
than
See?
going out anyway.
But just
so,
having that knowledge and
Yeah.
like
just
you
the
said,
knowledge
yeah,
is like,
change your thinking.
yeah.
Were you
Well,
guys
wow.
were you guys always tithing? Was there ever a point where you realized, oh, we're not tithing? Like, was that spiritual part kind of already taken care of once you guys were trying to kind of get to where you weren't in a mess anymore,
Yeah.
or were you
Yeah.
not? And then you learned.
I think
to do
that pretty much from the beginning of our marriage, we both were, right?
Yeah. I
think
mean,
that's
I
pretty
grew
solid.
up in the church and it was, you
I
give
do.
10%.
You knew how to tithe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was.
So we want to make that clear to everybody.
Yeah,
yeah.
because
But I'm
I
sure
do
you
think
do.
there's lots of people who think like, oh, I'm tithing, so my finances should just be taken care of. But I think where people are missing is those practical steps
Yep.
of like,
Yeah,
yes,
sure.
give
Yeah.
God the first 10, but then this is your part also.
Because
This
he's
is
called us to be the managers.
Yeah,
To be the
exactly.
managers,
So we have
to
a
be good
responsibility.
stewards.
And I think people
Right.
Yeah.
don't know how to manage their money.
Yeah.
They think, like, because yes, tithing is important, but what, and on top of that, should we be doing to see God move in our
Well,
finances?
and just continuing that, like a good manager knows what's going on.
Right.
You walk into any store, you talk to the manager knows what's going on,
Knows
right?
what's happening.
He knows
Yep.
who's working today,
So
might know
guilty
some of the
of that.
That's
financials.
good. That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
But like he's the manager, she's the manager, and so they're responsible for knowing what's going on. So as
Yeah.
managers of the money that God has entrusted to
Right.
us, shouldn't we have a responsibility for knowing what's going on? What's the
Yes.
outflow? What's the inflow? Rather than just like, well, it feels tight. There's no more money in the account. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like it'd be good to have a little bit more information.
More.
Even that
Information.
perspective
Come on.
shift of not going from like ownership to stewardship and remembering. Because I do think, I know for me, when I think of it in that way, I am a lot more responsible.
Oh, yeah.
When it's
yeah.
like, oh, this
It's on
isn't
your
mine.
mind.
This is
Yep.
God's, and I'm managing it. He's trusting me to do this. But when I think of it as mine, I'm a lot more like, you know, whatever.
It's fine.
It's so easy
So
to.
yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
So even just
Yeah.
that perspective shift of like, I'm a manager.
Yeah.
So knowing where your money's going, and then what would you say would be 2 other like key things that you guys implemented?
We're going to get to that. We're going to take a quick break.
Oh, commercial
and
break.
then we're going to come back with some more practical applications. I'm so excited.
I'm on the edge of my
It's so
seat.
good.
I want to know.
Move the immovable, break the unbreakable. God, we believe. God, we believe for it. The impossible, we'll see a miracle. God, we believe. Yes, we do. God, we believe.
Welcome back. I am so excited about this show. I know you're being blessed. Ashley, our lives are being changed
Yes.
right now. I'm so
Loving
happy
it.
that Bob and Linda are here and sharing this incredible anointing. Your story is so powerful. They have a book out, Simple Money, Rich Life, okay? And you can go to seedtime.com and join their whole team and learn how to manage this money,
Yes.
right? Because we are the head and not the tail. We're above
Absolutely.
and not
Yeah.
beneath.
And get
Before
some
we
resources.
went to the break, we were talking about 3 practical
Yeah.
ways to
Yeah.
get out of debt.
Yeah.
So we talked about one. Let's go on.
Yeah, I think the second thing for me would be, again, if we understand that we're managers, And good managers know what they're responsible for. Again, if you're managing a Starbucks, if you're managing whatever, you know what you're managing, what you're responsible for, right? If you're
Got it.
doing a good job. And it should be the same way with our money. So one way that we can do that is through an exercise that we call our assets under management, which just sounds like a super complicated thing.
Assets under management.
It's not
Okay.
though.
It's not.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm here
so
to make sure it's not.
Yeah,
You
the
keep
book,
it to-
the
we
book
can
does
depend
have
on you to
simple
keep
in
it
the
simple.
title, so
It
it's
does.
supposed to
That's
be
right.
simple,
Simple
not
money, rich life.
complicated.
all right, so don't worry
Right.
about the term. And so that term is one that financial advisors and investment managers will use to say, this is how much money I'm responsible for managing. Okay?
Okay.
So we take that term when we're looking at our actual assets, the things that we own and the debts that we have, to say, all right, this is what God has given me to manage. This is what I'm responsible for. And so we just have a sheet, a worksheet that we take all of our students through. And it's a simple exercise where basically you're writing out a list of all the things that you own. Okay? So if you
Okay.
own a car, if you own anything of any sort of value, so I wouldn't say anything super. You don't need to put your socks on there. You don't need to put your mugs on there. But anything that might be
If you
worth
own,
a
like,
couple
a
$100.
camera or a
Yeah,
guitar, you know
something
what I
of
mean? Like
certain
something of
value.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you own a
okay.
home, if you have a boat, if you whatever the
Right.
thing might be, you list all that on there. If you have money in your checking account, you write down the amount in your checking account. Okay? And then on the other side, we're going to list all of our debts. So the money that we own, student loans or the credit cards or the loan we have from grandma, like whatever. We're going to list
Whatever we
every
have,
debt that
every
we have
debt.
on there.
Okay.
And then we're going to subtract those two columns. So we're going to take all of our assets, everything we own, we're going to subtract all of our debts, and we're going to get one number. And then that number is the number that we're using this as our starting point to measure our progress. This is how we
Okay.
see if we're moving forward or backwards financially.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay?
Now, what about your home? When you talk about you own your home, does
Yeah.
it mean you put it down there if it's paid off?
That would be
If
right.
it's
I was
not,
going to ask
how do you
that.
do that?
Both
That's
ways. So if you
Put it
own
in-
it,
okay.
what's the value of your home?
What's the value of
that
your
goes
home?
on the asset side.
Got
If
it.
you could
Then
sell
what
it
do you-
today,
okay.
what would it
Okay.
be listed
Yeah.
for?
Okay.
But it would
And then
also
on the
be
debt
under debt,
side,
which you still
you have a
own.
mortgage.
Okay.
Right.
So this is like the most basic accounting you can do. And so this number is what a lot of people will call their net worth.
Net worth, right?
But we don't love that term
You don't love that
because, well, the main reason is I don't want any number defining my
Your
worth.
worth.
Come on.
Right.
Like,
That's
Come
good.
on. That's good.
what does Jesus say that I'm worth? It's
Right.
not worth my number, whether it's 10 million or whether it's negative 10 million.
Right.
Right.
Like, and so many people
Yeah.
define themselves by the number, and that just doesn't sit well with us.
So good.
You know?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, and the
you
other thing
shouldn't.
is, I mean, you were saying this earlier. It's like we are responsible for something, and this
Right.
just calling it assets under management reminds us every single time that we say that
That we're managers.
that we are just the managers.
Right.
We're not the owners. We're the
Uh-huh.
managers.
Yeah.
And we want to be responsible for what we're managing. And I mean, you even said it. It's like you make different decisions.
Right. You do.
If you
Yeah.
are spending someone else's money,
Money.
than you would
Absolutely.
if it's just your own.
Right. Absolutely.
And that is
100%.
really powerful to just really get that into your soul and start thinking through like, okay, this is a tool that I'm managing for someone else and I want to honor God with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's great.
And so this exercise, again, whether you use a sheet, whether you do it on a piece of paper, on a spreadsheet, it doesn't really matter. But this exercise, we get this number. This is our starting point. This is how we measure our progress.
Okay.
You know, so if we're going to a weight loss program or whatever, we'd step on a scale to see where we are,
Right.
Yes.
so that we can measure to see if what we're doing is working or yielding any fruit.
Yes.
And that's what this does.
Okay.
So now,
Yeah.
when we're
Okay.
doing everything else, we see, are we making progress or are we not?
Right.
You know?
Okay.
And the first time we did this, we had a negative number of like, it was like negative 14,000 or something like that.
Negative 13,000, like
He remembers
940, like,
And
What
22
did I tell
cents.
you?
Yes, he knows
prayed for
exactly
it.
the
You
number.
prayed
I got
Yes, you got exactly what you prayed for.
Prayers.
so it's really
yeah,
common to have a negative number.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Especially today.
within 1 year, we recalculated and we were positive $700.
Oh,
Now,
nice.
it sounds like, oh, great, $700.
Yeah.
What did
But
you
from
but
negative
that was
14,000, that's huge.
That's
huge. Yes.
And we
That's
were
great.
making minimum wage jobs.
Come
Yeah.
on.
So, like,
Just
all
remanaging
things are possible with God. I mean,
Right.
it was, God did some great stuff. And, we took responsibility for what we
There you
had.
go.
And man,
Wow.
it doesn't take as long as you think.
Yeah, I was
You
just
do it
about to
right.
ask that. Kind of what should people, like, what's a realistic time frame to check in? Because if it's like 2 months, I haven't made
Yeah.
any progress, you
Yeah.
could get discouraged. But like,
Oh, yeah.
but you say like, every year you should
Yeah.
see a
Or 6
significant,
months.
or 6 months, like kind of what's a realistic?
Yeah, we've done this really for the last 17 years, every 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
So generally at least once a year.
Sure.
Because that's a good amount. Something should have changed in there
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
A year. Okay.
And what I love about this, because some people will just measure your debt, and that's the only way to measure your financial progress. How much debt do I have? In which that's fine, but it's not the only way to measure your
No, it's
progress
not.
because
It's
it
not a
doesn't
full
factor in all the
Yep.
other good decisions that you might be making, like adding to your 401k
Sure.
or something like that,
Yeah.
or adding money to your savings. Like that doesn't factor that in. Whereas this factors in every good financial decision that you make.
Right.
So it's easier to see the progress
That's
forward. It's more encouraging
Makes
as you're
sense,
making
yeah.
those. Every good
Changes.
decision moves this number forward. Does it make sense?
Okay. Great.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
that one. And,
I will also say along the way, we set up mile markers for ourselves, and then we have a little celebration. We don't go nuts,
That's nice.
but if you are like me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard for you to just nose to the grindstone, I'm never going to spend a dime again.
yeah.
Just unrealistic.
Never going to Starbucks ever.
Never going ever. Right, exactly. It's like, don't take away everything I love. Like, that's not
right.
the goal.
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
You
The
gotta live a
goal
little
is
bit.
to, yes,
Yeah.
to be able
But to be disciplined.
enjoy your life still, but also enjoy the process. Because once
Yeah.
you see
Yeah.
some progress,
Yeah.
it gets really fun. And it is
Yeah.
motivating to
Motivation,
keep going. And
for
even
sure.
like, for me, it was like, oh, well, I wonder if I could just spend a little bit less. And then we, like, how much farther could we go if I just did
Yeah,
if I
got
spend
a
a
little
little bit
tighter
less?
over here.
And that's how it got me on board. Instead of it just being like, you know, the
A
math
drag.
guy comes in and is like, this is what we have to do. Like, that was what was great about Bob, is he understood that math didn't get us into this problem, and it's not going to get us out. Like, there's got to be
Yeah.
some psychological stuff that we do
Yeah.
Absolutely.
to keep
Yeah,
us
man.
motivated
That's
and
good.
excited
That's
to
good.
move forward.
And really, boundaries
Mm-hmm.
create freedom.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
A
absolutely.
lot of times people think they run from
Opposite,
it,
right.
but it,
Yeah.
it does it
It's so true.
motivates you and it gives you freedom and make it more creative.
Yeah,
It's
it
awesome.
stimulates creativity.
Stimulates
In which
creativity.
Absolutely.
we saw that so many times. I mean, I
Right.
remember one specific example where in our apartment, completely broke, and she had gone from spending 150% of her income probably living in her parents' house to moving in with me. And so,
Don't look at me like that.
You were in your parents' house.
Yeah.
Hey, have fun, right?
Well, and I didn't know. I just
You
didn't know.
think about it.
so
right?
we go from that, and she was just amazing because like we decided, all right, we're gonna pay off our debt. It's like, well, you know what that means? Like that means we gotta cut our spending way down, you know?
Gotta cut it a little bit.
Yeah. So we were doing that, and we were trying to decorate the apartment and make it look nice. And we could have gone to Target and just bought all the stuff new, but we started going to a thrift store and got a can of paint, and we ended up just decorating it so well.
It was just so much more fun.
Yeah,
That's
you know?
awesome.
But, like-
Especially those
I love it.
newlywed days, you know?
Yes.
It's
Got
so
to be
fun.
more
But the point
creative.
is, the creativity was stimulated by
Sure.
having some constraints. That
Yes,
we,
yeah,
otherwise,
that's
we would
great.
have just gone to Target or Walmart and just bought some stuff.
That's
you know?
a good way to look at it.
That's
Yeah.
I like
awesome.
that.
That's
Okay.
awesome. Okay.
So step 3.
Step 3.
Step 3. I would just say inviting God into the equation. Okay, so now that we're paying attention, now that we know our starting point, it's like, and again, there's so many people. I'm saying this because I would say it's like, oh well, yeah, of course you should pray. It's like, no, let's actually do
actually
this. Let's
pray.
actually
Yeah.
say, Lord, this is what I have. This is what you've entrusted me to manage. I'm giving this over to you. I'm asking for you to give me wisdom. I'm asking for you to give me the direction. This is where I would like to see, what I would like to see move forward on, and really get beyond just your own personal desires for what you want, and really like pray and understand, God, what do you have for me in my finances? Because when I was young, I just wanted $1 million so I could spend it on myself. But as I prayed, I watched him reveal that I was a selfish, greedy little guy, man. But I watched him change my heart and give me a heart for wanting to give and wanting to give millions of dollars away. And so there still was money that he needed to funnel through me, but for a
Right.
different purpose.
Purpose,
But
yeah.
it wasn't until I prayed that I really understood that. And
Wow.
along the way, he's blessed our socks off.
Yeah, that's what's
Yeah.
the best.
Oh,
Like
I could
you
cry.
could feel like you're
That's so
gonna
good.
be something's taken away from you when you
Yes.
give, but that's actually the exact opposite of
Yes.
Yeah.
what's happening. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk more on generosity. But before that, let's talk about credit cards.
Yeah.
What are your
Credit cards
thoughts?
all bad? Tell us about credit
Yeah.
cards. What do you think?
So when we first got married, we both had a ton of credit card debt, and we were in a big hole that we wanted to climb out of. We wanted to get rid of all of that. And so we decided we're going to be done with credit cards. And we didn't use credit cards for 7-8 years or something.
Whoa.
Completely got rid of them.
Wow.
Only used a debit card.
We went all in.
Yeah.
Y'all
Like
went
when we
all
decided
in.
to go in, we were
You jumped
all
all
in.
the way in.
Yeah, and we were like,
Okay.
we're going to figure this out.
That's good.
Yeah, and
So-
that's not the norm, but it is definitely doable. Like you can live your life
Absolutely.
just as a debit card and whatever. And so that's what we did. And then once we really got in a really solid financial situation, like we saw some of the benefits of having a credit card again. And so we made some rules for ourselves.
Right.
If we're going to do this, we're going to lay some ground rules out to make sure that we don't get in trouble again and build these big
Okay.
note balances up. So first rule we made for ourselves was that if we're going to do this, we are not going to spend them on discretionary expenses, meaning any category where we have a temptation to overspend, we're not going to spend them there.
Like eating out or shopping.
Eating out,
Yeah.
groceries,
Yeah.
the mall, like
You don't
Yeah.
use your
For
credit
us.
card for these.
no,
No.
we do not.
So
Okay.
only for like fixed things.
Fixed
like
expenses,
your
all of our
rent
bills.
Or,
I have no
okay.
temptation to overspend on our cell phone bill.
Sure,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Or the
whatever that thing
electric
is.
bill.
Right.
So
okay.
why was it good to use it for that? It was just easier? Or
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay,
we'll get to the
that.
third
All right.
little
Okay.
rule that we have here. So,
Okay,
so
okay.
that was the first rule for
First
us. And
rule.
again, this is not a prescriptive thing for everyone else,
This
but
is
for
what
us
you
to
guys-
ensure that we never got in trouble because
Yeah.
this will work.
This was the accountability we needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we need to eliminate that temptation to spend. The second rule that we had for ourselves is that we are never going to carry a balance. And if we ever carry a balance for it, we're going to cut it up and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that every single month, if we spend $1,000 on it, we're going to pay it
Have
off that
the
month.
money. You have the
Okay,
money
because
in the
we
account.
are going to be the ones who are earning interest. We're not going to be the ones paying interest.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I want to be putting money in the bank so they're paying me, or have investments where they're paying me, and not I don't want to be paying money to the bank. I don't want to be paying money
Right.
to the lenders. And so that was our second rule. And then the third rule is if we're going to do this, I want to get a credit card that's actually going to benefit us and work for us. Because what most people don't realize is that the difference between a good credit card and a great credit card, it's not like twice as good, it's like 10 times as good in terms of the
10 times
benefits
as
you
good?
receive. I mean, this is my
Yeah.
estimation.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
but the point is, like, I have
Wow.
friends who have a credit card that gives them rewards, and they'll
Right.
get equivalent of a toaster every year.
Every 3
You know what I mean?
years.
A toaster.
You know? And they're like,
You know,
"Can I use
that
my
type of
money?"
thing.
3 years.
Right.
And you're
Yeah.
like, that's
and you're
all
like,
you got?
no thanks.
Okay.
I'll
Or-
take more. Yeah.
the
what's
other
the
side,
alternative?
yeah, the other side is like, there are credit cards that, and these are what we use now, ones where the rewards are so good that we literally we've had over 100 free flights and hotel nights over the last probably 7 years at
That's
this point.
amazing. Yeah.
By using our credit card points strategically and how we do that. But the point is there's such a vast difference between the two.
I'm
And
sure.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's taking her entire family of 5 to Europe.
Oh wow. And not
On,
paying.
on
On
points.
on points. Yeah.
Flights and hotels, they're not paying
Oh,
for
come
anything.
on.
That's amazing.
Because she did it strategically.
strategic.
Now,
Yeah.
really quick, super important caveat here.
Okay.
Points do not matter if you are paying a balance, if you're
Right.
carrying a balance every month. The
Right.
interest that they earn from you is going to greatly outweigh those points.
That's why they
So-
can offer
Right,
the points.
right, because they know people
So-
are not disciplined and they're going to
Yes.
have a balance carry over and they'll be paying interest. Okay,
So I'm
we
always
are-
like super cautious about sharing this because this is for if you're paying a
if
balance
you're
off
paying
Right.
a balance
every
Got it.
month.
Yeah,
if
you
you're
have to
not,
have the
Gotta be
boundaries.
wise.
Don't
know
worry about it.
yourself. It's
Yes,
okay.
know yourself.
Yeah.
If I was not married to Bob, I would not use credit cards.
Yeah,
Got it.
Yeah,
It's not going to be worth it for me.
Right, you have to be
because I
disciplined.
probably would not be disciplined enough to keep it together.
Outweigh the
But
points.
having an
Yes.
accountability partner who is like, what is going on? It's real great.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
if you
I
don't
like
have that,
So-
it's okay.
Yeah, just don't do it.
Don't
Stay
do
away
it.
from
Yeah.
it. Right, right.
So
Stay away.
would you recommend if you are currently in credit card debt, probably should cut it up, stop using it until you're on the other side of it, and then, or do you still say even if you're in credit card debt, we think you can still because I feel like if you're still trying
Well,
to
the
pay your
first
way
thing is
out
to
of
get
that
out of
hole,
debt.
like
Yeah.
you probably
I mean, every situation is different. Like, so I don't have a hard and fast rule for that, but like, yes, let's
Most
start
of the
climbing
time,
out.
yeah.
Let's climb out of that debt before we start going into this. Because the fact of the matter is you need to get your credit up to a better place. A lot of these really good cards, you have to have a great credit
Good
score.
credit score.
Yeah.
So like
Right.
you need to get all that cleaned up. You need to be paying your bills on time.
Right.
You need to be, let's
Yes.
get those balances down to a really low or completely eliminated, and then we can start moving into that area.
awesome.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it. So, all right. So we got those three. Let's talk about generosity. What does generosity mean to you guys, and why
Yeah.
does it mean what it means?
I don't know. Do you want to start? What do you think?
I feel like I'm getting teary just like
Yeah.
thinking about talking about it because it has completely changed our lives. I remember when Bob and I first started dating, we had this pastor who, you know, we had a bigger building, and we had a property with a few different buildings on it, I should say. And he would say from the stage, you know, if you're writing a check, you can make it out to, and he'd say the name of the church, and he'd say, and you spell million any way you want. And everybody would laugh. It's a good joke. It really is.
I love it.
But I also remember thinking, why is everyone laughing so hard, and why is no one doing anything about
Can't
this?
we do that?
Why is it? Because the only reason it's funny is it's a surprise.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
why is that not more the norm?
Right.
And
It's like, I want to be one of those.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to actually write a check.
exactly.
For $1,000,000.
And I mean, this was at the point where we were like, I mean, can we scrounge together $10 to buy someone a birthday gift? Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't like we were just
You weren't there.
Sure.
overflowing with money, but there was something in me at that time that was like, that should be how
I want
it
to be.
is.
I want to
That-
be able to
Yeah.
write that check.
Right, I want to be able to write that check. I want to buy a building. That's what I would
Yeah.
say is I want to buy a building. We haven't gotten there yet, but I'm believing that we're going to
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah.
But so yeah, we had that, and I just remember thinking, well, how can we even get there? Like if we're just at the point where it's hard to tithe, like we're every time that plate comes by, we're like, here you go, Lord.
Okay, we're gonna do it.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
How do we get from that to an overwhelming generosity? And I feel like the Lord has just walked us through each step. And a lot of it has been, you know, the practical stuff that we're talking about, where it's like, okay, now I know what's going on. I can see where the money is going. I can see where I want it to go, and I can tell my money where to go instead of it telling me where it's going.
Got it.
That feels really great to just get in control. But through that also, I feel like the Lord did so much stuff in our heart, and there was so many things that were just like, would you rather?
Yeah.
So, I like Instagram. It's no secret. And there are people on Instagram that I follow, and I'm like, I said this to Bob. I said, Bob, how are these people? I mean, every other month they're renovating their house. I don't understand why they need new furniture when they just got
They
furniture.
just got furniture.
And I'm
Right.
like, and it's easy to go, oh man, I really wish I could, right? It's fun to
Yeah.
shop. I really enjoy
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
enjoy the process, the whole thing, it's
Pretty
fun.
nice. Yeah.
And Bob said, well, Linda, they're not giving the way we're giving. And I was like, that snapped me out of it so fast. I was
So
like,
quick.
you know what?
That's right.
I
I'd rather
am
give.
rather.
so much more content having money to give than I am with having a new couch.
Come
Yeah.
on,
Every year.
me
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
And
It's a
it
blessing.
really, once you kind of get that perspective of, I can use this to be the hands and feet of Jesus
Yes.
Yeah.
on the earth,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
changes it. It changes how you think about yourself. And you think, I don't need this stuff anymore. I
Right.
don't need to spend 150% of my income.
Right.
I'd rather
Right.
pull it back and be
Give
able
it
to
away.
do something that Jesus would do if he were here.
Yeah.
And I think that's encouraging because I feel like everybody who's watching, you can identify with that and be like, okay, there's no shame if that's where I'm at. I'm
Yeah.
at the place where, no, I want to go on the trip. I want to buy the new stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really care about giving. You just have to invite the Lord in and
Yeah.
ask him to
Yeah.
do that work in your heart,
Yeah.
in your mind, and he's the one that's going to bring
Absolutely.
that internal change. Because I do believe it has to be something internal for it to be sustainable.
Absolutely.
If you're
Yeah.
just doing it because, like you said, under compulsion, or you feel like you have to, or, well, this person's doing
Yeah.
it, so okay, fine, I don't think that's going to last. It
Yeah.
has to be like, oh, God, give me your heart. Give
Yeah.
me your heart for generosity. Show me how you want to use me. And
Yeah.
like you said, to be the hands and feet
Yeah.
of Jesus.
You know, the Bible says that it's more blessed to give than to receive. And I think that's a revelation
Yeah.
that we have to pray
Absolutely.
for everybody to get because
Yeah.
it is his heart. It is his heart. So, one of my questions to you, and I think you already answered it, when you talked about the giving account and starting to give, do you wait till you're financially set to start giving, or do you start giving now?
You start giving now, of course. It starts with giving.
Yeah.
Like
That's
God
so
started
good.
by giving to us.
That's right.
Right.
Like, of course. And so that is a big differentiator. I remember talking to someone, and he was kind of evaluating what we do and our brand and all this different stuff. It's like, one of the unique things is that you guys talk about, like, a lot of financial experts will wait until the end. And once you have a whole bunch of money, then you give.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and he's like, you guys talk about giving at the beginning, in the middle, and the end.
All of the-
And it's
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's all the way through everything.
Lord.
And in doing so, like, that's the thing. It's like when we give, it comes back to us. And we don't give just to manipulate God and to trick him and all that stuff. Like that's short-sighted. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Our God's too
Right.
big and too smart.
Right.
You know,
Too
but
big
at the
and
same time, like there is, you know, it says that what you sow, you will reap. And we see this
Right.
all throughout Scripture, this idea of sowing and reaping. This is where we got our name, seed time and harvest. In Genesis 8:22, he said there'll be 4 things that always remain. One of them is seed time and harvest.
Yeah.
It's a pattern that he has established.
That's right. That's right.
And so it's just always there, running through and through everything he does. And so we can trust that when we give, when we lead with that he's going to be faithful, that he's going to see us through.
Yeah.
And, you know, and one other piece of this that I'll just add is, again, some of my earlier experiences about giving were very much shame-based, and you have to do this, and like heavy-handed and whatever. And we have found so much freedom in enjoying giving.
Yeah.
Like, because it was never fun for us in the beginning, but once you learn to enjoy it, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many people that haven't learned how to enjoy giving.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different ways to do that, but one thing too is just thinking about the eternal perspective. Like, when we understand, biblically speaking, that one of the ways that we store up treasures in heaven, of which I don't know what that is, but I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't wait to find out.
Right.
Seeing
I
his
think it's
face
gonna be
will be
good.
the treasure.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
you know, and Paul talked about, I don't know where this was, in Ephesians or Philippians, somewhere just talking about how, or maybe Corinthians, talking about how I'm excited for your giving because of what is going to be credited to your account.
Count, yeah.
Right.
Corinthians,
It's
yeah.
like, what is he talking about there? What does he know that we're not, that
Yeah,
all of us
seeing
who are
right
trying to
now.
spend all our
Right.
money before we die?
Yeah.
Like, and so once you understand that, it just gives you an excitement because we're here for this sliver of time
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
in this grand scope of eternity. It's
Right.
like, why not try to store up as much treasure
much
in
as you
heaven
can.
as we
Right.
can right
Yeah.
now?
That's really
Yeah.
good.
And I think that could be blessing others. You know, you're storing
Absolutely.
up whenever you're blessing other people, blessing the poor. There's so many promises that come with that, you know. Promises that, I don't know, I know through generosity for me, I've seen God just bless my life and bless my children and I could cry too. That's why I'm not going to talk on it too long. but this is such a blessing, the anointing that you guys have, because the enemy has put so many people in bondage when it comes to finances.
Yep.
Yeah.
And thinking that there's not enough. But the God we serve has
Yes.
more than enough. But
Yeah.
we have to
100%.
line up with his principles and his way. And I think giving is just the way that he blesses our lives in ways that money can't even buy.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
totally
Well, you know?
supernatural. And I think something you said earlier was great, was like, God was building your trust in him. He didn't like just throw out the 31% at day one. But
Right.
I think when you can cultivate a relationship with the Lord and ask the Lord, like, Lord, I want to be in this with you. Like you said, it was an invitation.
Yeah.
And I think you have to first have a relationship with the Lord and understand what his plan and what his vision is, and like kind of as he lets you in on that,
Yeah.
it can be fun to give because you're not so worried about, I'm not going to have enough, but you're like, God's going to take care of me.
Yeah.
Like at the end
Yeah.
of the day,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
he's asked me to do something, he's got to have something better. And I
Yeah.
think just generosity, even people who don't even believe in the Lord will talk about generosity, but
Oh,
I
yeah,
know
'cause
that
it's a
I know
principle.
that there is something supernatural
Yeah.
about generosity that unlocks, like you said, money just kind of started coming
Yeah.
out of nowhere, but you had to take that step of obedience. And I just think it is such, like you said, an invitation, and the Lord wants to partner with us to do things that we can't do on our own.
Yeah.
So your rich life starts with knowing the Lord. We all have to know
Yes.
that. It starts with that. But so first of all, thank you all so much for coming. Thank you
course.
so much for
Yes.
coming.
Our pleasure.
And
So
I
much
missed
for
in the
having us.
title of the book. It says a 21-day kickstart
There you go.
to stress-free money management. Simple money, rich life.
Practical steps to
Bob, would you
go to
end
the
us
next
in
level.
prayer? Maybe
I would
a
love
final
to.
thought, and then just pray for those who are watching.
Yeah.
End us in prayer.
Do you have any final thoughts? You want me to do
Any
it?
final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just along the lines of giving, I think there is no better way to fight. You know, God says we can't serve God and mammon.
Come on.
Like he told us, and I think there's no better way to fight that practically than by giving.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, I am actually going to release
Release
this
this.
Yes, release.
Yep.
instead of try to hoard it.
Yeah.
And I think that just that act of faith, if it's, you know, $1, like anything that
Yeah.
you give is an act of faith and allowing the Lord to come in and change your heart into view money the way he views it, because he's not afraid of it.
No.
He's not nervous.
No.
He's
Right.
not in a
He doesn't need
scarcity
it.
mindset.
Not at all.
At all, right?
Right.
And so when we do that, it's like a quick way to just go, God, help me in this area.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
All right, Lord, well, we just thank you, Father.
Thank
we thank you that you are so good, that you are so faithful. I thank you that Philippians 4:19 said you'll provide all of our need according to your riches and glory by Christ Jesus. In 2 Corinthians 9:8, you said you'd provide an abundance for every good work. So for all of us, everybody viewing this, all of us in this room, Father, I just thank you that you are providing that abundance for the good work, the works that you've called us to. I thank you that you're providing us more than enough to do that. And I pray that you give us wisdom and discernment so that we don't get confused and run off and spend that increase and everything we have on the wrong things, but to put it towards what's most important to you. And I thank you for just discernment and wisdom on how to manage what you have entrusted to each one of us. And just like we see all throughout the Bible, there's a little bit of a test that you give us. You give us something to see what we do with it, and that'll determine what happens next. And I pray you help us to pass those tests. As you speak to us, as you lead us, help us to use the money wisely for your glory, for your purposes. And I thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Everybody go to CeTime.com now.
Yes. Get the resources.
And join it.
Get
How
the
long is your class?
We have a couple different classes. We have one class that's 6 sessions. We have one on budgeting. We have one on investing. One on getting out of debt. So we have a handful of classes over there as well.
See?
Yes.
So God has already
Yay.
supplied everything that you need. Go to CeTime.com. Again, thank you so much,
Thank
Bob
you,
and Linda. I
guys.
love you
Thank
all.
you.
God bless you.
God bless. Have a great day.
Next time on Generations.
I prayed what he said, and now I'm gonna watch what he do. Because the
Ah.
last time, that's what they missed.
I'm about to go. I'm about to praise him.
Pray what he did. So now I'm gonna watch what
And
he
so
does.
we feel like only God answers by miracles. No, God answers with favor.
Yeah.
God answers
That's
with
right.
wisdom.
That's good.
God answers with a plan of action.
Yep.
God answers with somebody somewhere using their power, their ability, their influence to help you.
Welcome to the official page of CeCe Winans. You can catch up on past seasons of Generations right here on YouTube. Every single episode is available to watch right now on demand.
Back by popular demand.
Angie, you making a mess already. You just, your paper's going
here with one.
This show is thriving after broken relationships. And I'm here with Ashley and my dear friend Nicole C.
So tune in, turn it up, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hey everybody, CeCe and Ashley here, and we want to invite you to Generations Live 2025. It is going to be incredible. We'll have Cheryl Brady, Jackie Hill Perry, Priscilla Shires
Awesome.
coming.
Yay.
Oh my goodness, and so many others. We have others we'll continue to add, but it's going to be amazing. Ashley will be teaching again.
Yes, I'll be back.
What a powerful message you shared at 2024. So you don't want to miss it. If you haven't registered, go and register now, because guess what? People are coming.
Yes, and it's on May the 9th and the 10th, 2025 here in Nashville, Tennessee. So make sure you go online at generationsliveconference.com.
See you there.